He must be too fat to play in the NFL, or he's a character concern. He can't hang out there. Didn't want to practice because it's May 21st, and he can't get out there for OTAs. Relax. Welcome into the Hot Read. I'll tell you why I'm laughing in a second. Welcome into the Hot Read podcast. I'm your host, Easton Freeze, director of published content here at BroadwaySportsMedia.com. We're also brought to you by the 440 Podcast Network. This is the Hot Read podcast for Wednesday, May the 22nd. You can follow me on social media at Easton Freeze. I am joined as always by producer JT, who you can follow on social media at JT_Runke. JT, the reason I'm laughing, I came across a poorly timed tweet right before the show began. Did you see this? Has nothing to do with what we're talking about today. Did you see this? That a postal worker in Ohio, your home state, the lovely state of Ohio that should be disbanded and divvied up to the surrounding states, has been caught using his postal service van to race against a Ford Mustang before being pulled over by police for doing 100 miles per hour in a 60 mile per hour zone.
I did not see that. No.
Can you imagine a postal van going 100 miles an hour?
No,
I put like a bicycle engine in there, like the dude's pedaling. Like I thought those were the least powerful cars on the road. I think there are some little Tykes battery powered vehicles more powerful than postal vans, but apparently they can do 100 in those things. And they drive on the wheel is on the opposite side, so that makes it even more like weird. That's wild. Only in Ohio. What a strange vehicle that we just allow on our streets.
Only in Ohio. Is that like Cincinnati area, or like did they say?
No, I'll have to do some research on this. We'll go into the details behind that story.
That's such a wild way to open up the show, though.
It is. What else do we want to talk about today? We're talking about the Titans in OTAs. Today was the first OTAs that media was allowed to attend. I believe the second OTA session for the Titans. I think they started yesterday. Could be wrong. It's only been a couple of days here. We're at the beginning of things. It's going to go the next couple of weeks. And we've got some sights and sounds from today's OTAs. You guys know the drill. This is your one-stop shop for everything that you saw or maybe didn't see, anything you missed from social media as you were following along with the beat reporters on Twitter or on Facebook or wherever. You want to see everything that happened in one place? We've got you covered on today's episode. We're going to dive into some first impressions for the Titans' new receiver room, dive into some Skoronski updating, some changes for the Titans' second-year former first-round offensive lineman. We'll look at some comments from Tyler Boyd, some comments from DeAndre Hopkins, an update on T'Vondre Sweat, some thoughts from Amani Hooker, who is, besides Jeffrey Simmons, really like the veteran leader of the Titans' defense, and what he thinks about the new defense that Dennard Wilson is bringing in. All of that and more coming up on today's show. But before we dive into any of that, if you are watching with us live, we appreciate you being here on a Tuesday afternoon. Do us a couple of favors. First of all, if you're watching on Twitter or on Facebook, leave those places. Go on over to YouTube and search Broadway Sports Media on YouTube. When you find the Broadway Sports Media YouTube page, you'll find this live stream going live at that location. And that's where you're going to want to click in and join the comment section where we already have Z Dean hanging out. Looking forward, he is, to seeing some Levis to Ridley connections throughout the summer. And then, of course, in the fall. We'd love to hear your thoughts, comments, questions, anything that you want to talk about, Titans related, OTAs related, life related. We'd love to hear from you in the comment section over there on YouTube. And while you're there, make sure you hit subscribe and hit like, helping us out with the algorithm and all those fancy things. We greatly appreciate it. By the way, JT, our YouTube channel, less than 50 subscribers away from 1,000 as we've kind of built this up in the last year or so. That's a big milestone in terms of YouTube for folks that know anything about YouTube. That's when YouTube will actually start giving you like pennies on the dollar for the advertisements on your shows. And so as we've built it up over the last season, this has been the goal in mind. So if you're not yet subscribed, help us out. We want to make 4 cents on each video. So, hit subscribe. That'd be nice for us.
If anything, it is my birthday today. Please.
Oh my goodness! I buried the lead with the stupid postal worker thing.
As your birthday present to me, go hit subscribe, please. That's all I want for my birthday is a subscription to the YouTube channel.
A fantastic way to entice folks to a fantastic salesman job there by you. Happy birthday to you, JT. Thank you for all that you do for the show and keeping us mostly on time. Listen, we're only 18 minutes late today. I probably would have been at least an hour if it was just me. Let's be honest. That's kind of how this typically goes. So. Happy birthday to JT. I think we're going out tonight, grab some dinner, grab some drinks, have a good time with the boys. But first, we got a show to get through. So Zach in the comments wishing you a happy birthday, everybody. I need some happy birthdays to producer JT in the chat throughout today's show. But JT, where should we begin? Let's start with just some videos from camp, and here's let's start with a little Will Levis content for your timeline. No better place to start than with the Titans' new official starting quarterback, Will Levis, second-year player. Here is some of what he did today. Generally speaking, not a ton of super compelling footage from camp so far, just because with Brian Callahan and this coaching staff being new, and this a lot of this team being new, and with a lot of the system, both in the playbook, but as well as the way that they operate day to day and the way that practice goes, all of that is still being learned, and so it's kind of a back to basics here, and it's going to get much more intriguing and complicated, I think, as we go throughout the summer programs here. But we see Will Levis and Mason Rudolph, who kind of from behind looks like a Kroger version of. Do you know who I'm thinking?
I was about to say he's giving Sam Hartman vibes. Much Sam Hartman. I'm like, for a second I was like, Sam Hartman is not on the Titans.
No, I did the same double take when I showed up. This was the first video I took right here that we're looking at on the screen. And if you're listening with us, watch on YouTube so you can see what we're talking about. And I was like, why is Sam Hartman here? Where does he even play? He's with the Commanders now?
Commanders, yep.
Yeah. Wrong team, buddy. But no, it's, I guess our friend has grown his hair out here. And it's a good look. I like it. So, good for him. Will Levis was throwing to his receivers today, which let's show some of their videos. And I don't even know what order I add these in, but let's just play the first one here, JT. Some looks at the receiving, the top receiving options, the top four. Five receiving options, because I included some footage of Jha'Quan Jackson, the Titans rookie round, sixth round pick, right? Sixth round pick. This first one here is Tyler Boyd, the newest addition to the Titans wide receiver room. Here he is running some routes, and I'll just give you my general. And again, it's day one. It's May. We're not gonna no sweeping, no bold predictions. We'll do sweeping predictions. How about that? And the sweeping generalization on Tyler Boyd is he looks the part. He looks like a savvy vet, looks like the kind of guy that is going to create separation in the short area and be the slot receiver you want him to be. He's actually a little bit bigger and I know what he is on paper, but he looks and plays a little bit bigger out there than I was anticipating. Probably not for you because you're used to watching him play a lot of ball. And earlier in his Cincinnati days, he was playing outside more than he has been in recent years. But he looked the part. Not really a whole lot to say on him. Let's go to the next receiver here. Let's see who this next guy is. This is that's a little Jha'Quan Jackson. So this is the Titans' 6th round rookie out of Tulane. The number one thing that stood out about him, and I posted this video compilation that I made here on Twitter, and people were moving mad in the comments. There were some strong takes being thrown around. Jha'Quan Jackson better than Treylon Burks. Jha'Quan Jackson. I saw somebody say we found our new Khalif Raymond. We've got our guy. Maybe let's pump the brakes a little bit on Jha'Quan Jackson. But generally speaking, the takeaway from the first day really watching him out there is this guy's got the giddy up that you're looking for. He can turn it on and get as quickly upfield as he needs to be. He's going to be able to run under that ball if you put it anywhere even remotely near him. And in that first clip right there, JT, if we can play that again, that was a good example of kind of what we saw from him a lot of the day. It's right here where it's turns it on and can cover 10 yards in the blink of an eye. And that's what his role is going to have to be, right? Because he's not got the size to compete on the outside with anything beyond just kind of a burner role. He's not got the polish to be an underneath guy all that often. I don't think he's going to need to be that Khalif Raymond role. And whether he is that guy or not, we'll see. Let's make the roster first, maybe. Exactly. I'm not saying I am down on him necessarily. I just, he's a 6th round rookie receiver who we weren't super high on in the pre-draft process. So I need more than a couple of reps today to change my mind on him. But generally speaking, I was pleased with what I saw. JT, any thoughts, or should we go to the next guy?
Yeah, I was going to say, it would be really weird, I think, to see him not make the roster or not have a really, really good shot, as we saw last year with Colton Dowell. If Colton Dowell's making the roster, really feels like a 6th round pick in Jha'Quan Jackson probably has a decent chance to make the roster. Specifically, like what Tyke Tolbert said earlier at rookie minicamp with the, his ability to be a factor in the new kickoff rule and in the punt return game and kick return game. Like, those are big things that I think they brought him in for. A lot of this, what you're watching right here, is a lot of the same drills that, and I believe most of the wide receivers ran the same drills, but very much in the same category of, the movements that you would want from a guy in the slot. And that's exactly what he's going to play at the next level, given that size and that speed. And you see some of the short bursts and quick movement, not exactly the most, technically like gifted
sound,
or
right.
sound player that plays with just the finesse and footwork. But the speed is something that I think is evident right here on some of this, on some of the footage here, especially in that first clip, and a big reason of why he is with the team.
And you're right to bring up the special teams element. That's his meal ticket, right? That's his free lunch. That's what's going to get him on this team. It is if/when he carves out a role for himself as one of or both of the returner responsibilities for this team. Not to mention the fact that I believe we have it documented that in the past, Brian Callahan coached teams have kept more like 7 or 8 receivers as opposed to 5, 6, 7 receivers. So if they're keeping more receivers, which there are a lot of them in this room, they've brought in a lot of guys, and based on the way that the offense is going to operate, that we think with Brian Callahan and the way he wants to run things, it's going to be receiver heavy. They're going to need receivers. I bet you they keep 7 or 8. We'll see in July what we think, but I think that he's a pretty sound option to be on the roster there. So this next guy is Calvin Ridley, and I want to spend some more time on him because he was the most interesting guy that I saw out there today. The biggest thing for him is he's explosive. We joked when he came in and said in his introductory press conference, guys, I know I'm 29 on paper, but in real life, I'm 25. That's just the reality of it. That's what I am, whether you want to believe me or not. And today he looked like it out there. Now, again, it's one day, it's a couple hours. He's running against air, running without pads, whatever. But the get up and go, the burst off the line is, and this is not news if you've watched anything from Calvin Ridley, like this has been his superpower for most of his career, is he can get on top of a corner really, really quickly. He can force you into conflict really quickly, and he can blaze by you if you're caught even a little bit flat-footed, despite having decent size. And so he looks to still have that. He seemed energized out there. I was impressed in particular with just the way, it's a lot of new names and faces out here, and yet he seemed to be taking on the leadership mantle of the receiver room based on the way that he was interacting with these guys. Almost in between almost every single drill, he's talking to his fellow receivers or to the quarterbacks or both, talking out, motioning out, or physically walking out the steps or the fine details of the technique. He's the one doing that. It's not DeAndre Hopkins. It's not Treylon Burks. It's Calvin Ridley, who's been here for 10 seconds. And I think his eclectic personality lends itself to that a little bit. He's a people person. You can tell just by the way that he operates. And I think that he is obviously important as the Titans, projected wide receiver 1 outside guy, but even more than that, he may be a force multiplier in the sense of that wide receiver room truly having a vocal leader now.
Yeah, and I think that was pretty evident earlier today as, yourself and a lot of other reporters out there today were taking notice about how, Treylon Burks was paying close attention to what Calvin Ridley was doing, kind of asking him for tips on technique and some other, pointers to help him with his game. And Calvin Ridley was very willing to help him with that. And that's something that, like you said, they really haven't had a leader type role in this wide receiver room in a while. And I think that's something that Calvin Ridley, may have not been able to really do in his time in Jacksonville, just given the circumstances, but the new fresh start for him with all of that behind him may be a real reason of why he's been able to show this side so early.
Yeah. So we can move on, but I'm super stoked to watch him in camp. And I think that he's going to be a really interesting guy to keep an eye on throughout the summer. Here's Treylon Burks, a familiar sight for Titans fans. And, some of these clips, like I posted this and some people were with those first 2 clips saying he looks lazy, he looks slow. Those first 2 drills were, more jog through speed than run through speed. And then that last one where he gives up on the ball, it's because there was a bad pass. And I muted the video, but in the audio of the original clip, you can hear the coach who threw it say, "Sorry, Treylon, bad pass." So he's not We're not laying out for passes on, May 21st. Let's relax on that front. In terms of the first impression from Treylon, who we're used to seeing, he looks trimmer. He looks, last year he got married, I think, right before the season, at the beginning of the season, somewhere in there, or last summer, somewhere in the calendar year 2023. And it was talked about, I'm not calling the guy fat. I'm telling you, this is a relatable element here. When you get married, you put on a couple marriage weight, a couple marriage pounds. That's just anybody that's been married, a little honeymoon weight. That happens. You're happy. You're enjoying good food on your honeymoon. You're living together and everything is bliss. And you're just maybe not working out as much as you should. He got a little bigger last year, it seemed. And maybe that was by design. Maybe it's not actually honeymoon weight, but whether it was intentional or an accident, he seemed bigger last year than he does this year. And I don't mean that to say he has lost his physical presence. It just seems like he is toned up. And that's kind of reflected by what we heard from Bill Callahan the other day at the podium, where he says, Treylon led our team in distance run and in top speed during practice, whatever, the other week. He's very highly conditioned. He ran 3.5 miles today. He topped out at 22.5 miles per hour, whatever it was. That's the guy that I saw out there. So I'm not surprised by that. And we're going to talk about Treylon in the context of what DeAndre Hopkins had to say about him a little bit later in the episode. But I was talking to our buddy Danny Kelly, who's a national guy. He covers the league from a fantasy and draft perspective with the Ringer. I was texting with him after the practice because he was asking me about what we saw, and what I told him is what I'm going to tell you guys. I think that him being in that wide receiver 3-4 role is going to be what's best for him. I think that lighting a fire under his butt and making him fight for snaps it may not be good for him, but I'm at least intrigued to see how he responds. To not have the expectations in the summer be, you're the one or the two, you're going to get opportunities, you just got to make the most of them. No, now it's not only do you have to make the most of your opportunities, you're not going to get as many unless you earn them. And so I'm just intrigued to see how he responds to that role, as well as the fact that, learning under these three savvy veterans ahead of him in Boyd and Hopkins and Ridley that's going to help any of those guys in that room. And I think that that's something that he's going to, if he can lean into those two things, that's going to be a big deal for him this offseason. And, whether it's a breakout in 2024 or not, you may see the best ball from Treylon Burks in 2024. That's the goal. And then this last guy, let's pull him up real quick. This guy, it's DeAndre Hopkins. First impression is it's same old D-Hop. He's out there doing the veteran minimum. I combine those words in terms of participation. So not as many clips of him running routes because it's May and because, you're in load management territory when you're in your 30s like he is. That being said, when he was going all out, when he was participating fully in the drills, he looked like the same old guy. Him and Levis are, I think, going to start the season as each other's favorite buddies, just in terms of, hey, they're the only two besides Treylon, but, in a different capacity. They're the only two starters on this team at quarterback, wide receiver that have any chemistry together. And so the idea of it, and Tyler Boyd talked about this at the podium today, this idea of when you develop a psychic connection with your quarterback or as a receiver, when does that come? How quickly can that come? And Tyler's response was, that takes some time with these receivers and so many new ones. The fact that you have multiple new guys that Levis is trying to get on the same wavelength as at the same time, him and Hopkins may need to lean on their 2023 experience together a little bit more heavily to begin the season.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think that's going to be one of the major things, especially when you look at all these receivers and how many times they were throwing the ball today. I think this was something that was pointed out, that some people said that they've never seen the ball thrown more than they did today in practice, which it is a practice. I would hope that they would be throwing footballs. The quarterbacks would be throwing footballs to the receivers so that they can catch them, because that's what we're practicing to do on the real field. However,
that's the idea.
It's you're gonna get maybe an increased pass attempt number from Will Levis this season. Yeah. I'm guaranteeing you in those first couple of games, D-Hop is going to be the major target as they find their new rhythm in this new offense and scheme. And like you said, right there, the connection is something that's already established, that he has a leg up on all of these other receivers. So that's going to pay big dividends in the beginning of the season.
And to that point, not to go fully down this road, but the idea of, yeah, he's going to have more pass attempts per game. That's a given. That this offense is going to demand that. There is a world, and I saw some people ragging you over the idea of like, well, he might be throwing 45 times a game, might be throwing 50 times a game. First of all, based on one practice, you can't say that. Second of all, there becomes a range of diminishing returns with pass attempts. Like if you've ever played fantasy and really tracked like pass attempts per game, you may have realized the correlation of, hey, a Dak Prescott, he threw 60 times today and he was amazing in fantasy. But that wasn't because it was a good day for the Cowboys. That was because they needed to score 45 points to win, or, they lost despite Dak throwing for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. There are very few quarterbacks in the league where I think any coach worth their salt would tell you, by design, we want this guy throwing 50 plus times per game. Like maybe with Patrick Mahomes, you want to do that. But even then, you watch September, October football. They're not doing that. They're trying to not do that as much as humanly possible. Josh Allen can be that way. Dak Prescott can be a volume guy like that. Matt Stafford can be a volume guy like that. Am I missing anybody? Joe Burrow can at times be Jared Goff can be a volume guy like that, but it's more a dink and dunk thing with Jared Goff. So with a Will Levis, I think wanting more is good, but you shouldn't want too much. And if I told you this year, Will Levis could average between 35 and 45 passes per game, or 45 and 55 passes per game, you would probably pretty reliably be able to tell me, okay, well, if it's the latter, if he's throwing 45 to 55 times per game, probably not as good a season. Things probably didn't go as well as they would have if he had been throwing 35 to 45 times per game, right?
Probably, because then you also have to consider, we get it. It's the first day. It's the first real practice of May here that media was available for today. You're, like you said, you're going up against air with no pads. And we know how much Will Levis's hero ball style of throwing the ball last year got him into trouble, or should have got him into more trouble than he did. Right. And I think that's the crux of my entire argument in this thing, is that how much, like, if you can tell me that he's going to fix those progression issues and that quick decision making that almost cost him a lot more than it really did this past season, then I'm all for it. But until I see, and we'll see more as they get into padded and we get closer to the regular season, until we see more of that, it's fine to think that he is going to throw 35 to 45, but for this offense to work, especially entering such a pivotal year for Will Levis, I still would be pretty shocked to see that.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, let's get to some of these interviews before we get out of here today. A relatively short episode for you guys, but this is the meat of today's conversation. And our first clip here is from Bill Callahan's press availability at the dais today. He was talking about what his role is as the head coach on this team. And if you caught the fantastic interview between he and the Bussin' Boys on Bussin' with the Boys, their podcast, I think it dropped this morning. Listened to it before. I was listening to it on the way actually to the Titans facility. Very good stuff with Brian and Taylor and Will. And they were asking him, I forget how it came up, but Brian ended up talking about how he's had to realize in this transition to being the head ball coach that his words carry more weight than he sometimes realizes. And it's like, if he's busting somebody's balls, he can see in their face that, like, it comes across differently than it would be if he was an assistant. It's like he walks into his assistant coach's office and like gives him a hard time for messing something up. He can see some fear in their eyes. He's like, well, calm down, man. Like I forgot that I have the power to fire you. Whoops. Yeah, that's on me. Or, one positive comment to a depth guy just trying to make the roster, the way it can light them up and make their day. We were kind of asking him about that, and what other things have changed for you as you've tried to figure out what your role is as the head ball coach. And in this question in particular, out there on the practice field, what are you doing? And here was his answer.
I'm definitely more focused on the offensive side than it is, because I'm I'm running that system, if you will, so there's a lot more focus there. But I spend time watching the defense. I make sure I get with Dennard every day, and we watch the tape. So I got a pretty good feel for what's going on over there. And at the end of the day, I trust those guys to work. I mean, those are veteran coaches on the defensive side, and they know what they want and how they want it. So I let them do their job, and I make sure I'm on top of what's happening there too. But I definitely focus heavier on the offense right now.
And no shock, we're going to be hearing a lot of cicadas in the background of today's videos, because if you are in Nashville, or I think just anywhere in the South right now, I'm pretty sure it's like the whole U.S., we are in hell. They're everywhere. I'm surprised you can't hear them outside my window right now, JT.
I'm very close. I think it's the
I
green
feel like I'm
right
screaming
here.
over the cicadas I'm listening to in real time.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough living out here.
Well, and shout out to the Titans facility, because you hear cicadas in the backgrounds of this video. It's way better than it would be if we were like here, because the Titans facility is on a peninsula with like no trees around it. So there are very few cicadas, and even still, they managed to be in the background of these videos. Anyways, about what he actually said. Yeah, he's hanging out with the offense a lot. He spent a lot of time with the receivers today. I want to see some trends, in terms of, because we knew what Vrabel was. He was walking around involving himself in literally, and this is one of my favorite things about him. I think this is one of the things that makes him a genuinely a good ball coach. Is he involved? He's more than a head coach. He's a great teacher, and he was hands-on with every single position group. Literally hands-on, physically hands-on with every position group, constantly teaching guys, just basically doing rounds around practice every day. I don't think that's going to be Brian's thing. Not that he couldn't, but because he's going to be functionally not functionally the OC, because they have an OC, but the play caller on offense. He's, as he said, running that operation, and they've got so many new moving pieces in particular on that side of the ball. At the wide receiver position and with some of the linemen, he's going to be involved in that more. And I'm curious to see, because today it was more of when I was observing him, it was more of a laid back approach. It was more of a watch and see, comment here, observe the way his coaches are handling practice and whatnot. But generally speaking, not really being super duper involved in that way. So I'm curious to see how his role evolves. One more clip here one more quote from Brian, when he was asked about Peter Skoronski, which I want to talk a little bit about here. Peter Skoronski, Titans first round pick last year, 11 overall, tackle in college, moved to guard, going to be flanked by two new guys this season. And of most note, last year in week 2, 3, very early on in the season,
I believe it was
he had
around like week 4, right before October.
I was about to say it was in September. I know that much. He had an emergency appendectomy. And that surgery and the timing of that surgery caused him to inevitably lose like 20 pounds at the time. And when you're an offensive lineman in the NFL, you're like a bear for winter. You're trying to bulk up preseason because you're going to be losing weight throughout the season. Maintaining weight is a difficult thing when you're going through the physical rigors that these guys are going through. And so that was a really screwed up situation for him. And not to mention even just regaining core strength, healing from the stitches and trauma of a surgery, all of that stuff made it difficult for him. And so he's come back bigger and stronger, it appears. And we asked his head coach, Brian Callahan, hey, what have you seen from Peter Skoronski so far? Here was his answer.
Yeah, he's put in some really good work. I think he looks great physically. He looks like he's supposed to look. I think probably got a little bit lighter because of the appendectomy. I think he had. It probably contributed to some of that. But he looks like what guards are supposed to look like. He's put a lot of really good work in. I'm pleased with his progress.
And then here's the clip where we asked Peter himself, who was available to us today, what was last year like? What has it been for you getting back up to where you want to be physically and weight-wise this offseason? Here's what he had to say for himself.
I don't know if it was a focus so much as I feel like, that happened to me last season. I was maybe a little light. Not my strongest last year, and it's hard enough to keep weight on a normal season, let alone losing 20 pounds with the surgery. So, it wasn't anything planned. I just was training and eating and trying to do my best, and I feel pretty strong. I feel pretty, definitely heavier, but feeling good and feeling strong.
Peter, what?
I love the way that he and Coach Callahan both be like, he probably was a little bit lighter last year, and then he just right out said, yeah, I was 20 pounds. I lost 20 pounds for that surgery. Yeah, man, he looks bigger. I can't tell if he looks stronger yet because they're not super, full contact yet. We'll see on that front. I don't think we have it.
I was going to say, from the looks of it on the sled today, he was looking powerful once again,
Yeah, those clips you saw, some real power from him.
The very famous sled today now. Like, he looked very, very good.
Bertha and Olga, those guys, those gals, those fine ladies.
Yep.
It's funny because he was talking about it, and I didn't get a video of it because I was just listening and laughing. He was talking about how there was earlier on when they had some of the veteran outside activities before the rookies even came in, I believe. There was kind of a conspiracy that those two were weighted differently, and like they'd been messing with the springs or something in there. And then there was a conspiracy amongst the linemen that maybe Bill himself was changing them and making one more difficult than the other. And then he said that Bill Callahan had them taken apart and reassembled because the players said that they felt different. And then they ran the scientific method on these by lining up and doing each one at a time and seeing the difference. I don't know. Apparently there was a grand conspiracy going on amongst the offensive line room for the Tennessee Titans. And that's something he felt he needed to share today. He also had some remarks that we're not going to share via video, but I'll share the gist of it about Bill Callahan, just saying he was excited to bring him in, have him brought in rather. Excited to work with him. Had heard from some guys that had worked with Callahan in the past who were training with Peter about what to expect and how he's going to work them. And he said he's been intense. He's been working us. He's been, calling out our BS, and it's been really good, and he enjoys that much. This last clip here from Peter is about the help around him, adding Lloyd Cushenberry to the center position on his right, adding JC Latham to the left tackle position on his left. What's that going to mean for him? How's that going to help him as a player at left guard? And here was his answer.
Yeah, no doubt. Cush is obviously not the tallest guy, but definitely a really powerful player. JC's build speaks for itself. So definitely makes my job easier, especially in the run game in terms of that. And then just obviously there's a communication aspect to that too. But they both seem like they're really on top of things. So definitely a huge help having both those guys.
A question from Zedian here in the comments as we wrap up with some of the thoughts on big boys today, asking, has there been anything said about NPF not being out there today? If anyone needs OTAs, it's him. He is still, Brian said at the podium, he is still rehabbing. He did not comment on whether or not that is from the injury he sustained last season or not, like still rehabbing from that or something new. He did not say, but he's in the building rehabbing. And speaking of rehab, T'Vondre Sweat was not out there today, who was also a part of the contingent inside rehabbing something. Don't know what that was between today and 10, 12, 14 days ago that we saw them out there at rookie camp. Something has happened for him to be getting some treatment inside. We're going to play a clip here in a minute from Brian Callahan talking about T'Vondre Sweat, just giving us an update on how he's come along. But the idea, and Kenneth says it here in the comments, already tired of the rhetoric of Sweat and MPF missing time, clearly going to get zero grace from fans. It's, again, it's May 21st. It's the first or second day of OTAs. I will not be worried about who is or is not out there until we get to, early mid-August at the earliest. And they're missing consistent time. Like during this, if you're new to this process, guys are going to be in and out of the lineup or, out there at practice on a regular basis. And sometimes it's rehab, sometimes it's treatment, sometimes it's a recently sustained injury that they run in early. Sometimes it's personal and has nothing to do. They're just out for the day. Whatever it is, it doesn't really matter until August. And so this is not just cope because I'm a fan of T'Vondre Sweat and have been since the pre-draft process. And I'm making excuses for him for missing practice today. That's not what it is, man. It's the fact that it's May 21st. If Will Levis wasn't out there today, I'd ask where he is. But if you told me he was, getting treatment on something, would I be freaking out? No, because dude's getting nicked up. You tweak a hammy, whatever. Is it a bad look? As Kenneth reading my mind here in the comments, is it a bad look with it being day one of OTAs? Sure. I mean, we did see T'Vondre Sweat looking big and fast and dominant, less than 2 weeks ago. So, we've seen him out there already. It's not like this guy can't stay out there. He's been there one day media was there. He's not been there one day media was there. And that doesn't even count for all the days in between that they've been out there that we've not seen. So let's just pump the brakes a little bit on this idea. Oh, he must be a 2-down player. He must be too fat to play in the NFL, or he's a character concern. He can't hang out there. Didn't want to practice because it's May 21st and he can't get out there for OTAs. Relax. We will get worried about that when we get there. All of that being said, here is his head coach, Brian Callahan, giving an update, a positive one, mind you, on what it has looked like from T'Vondre Sweat so far.
Been great. Really been pleased with his progress. He's one of those rehab guys currently, but everything he's done up to this point has been really good. I'm excited about the potential there for him. And anytime that these guys get the pads on in training camps, when we really find a separator for who ends up taking a tackle spot. But I've been pleased with where he's at.
Coaches.
All right. Big boys out of the way. Now let's talk about some receiver topics here. And we've got a couple of clips from Tyler Boyd and then one from DeAndre Hopkins. We'll start with Boyd. We asked him, this is his first day. He said he got in yesterday. Today was his first day at the facility and really his first time in Nashville in any, the Bengals have come here for business trips, game trips, but he's never really been in the town in earnest. So he says he's going to have to check it out. We asked him why Tennessee, why Nashville? Why did you choose this team? And he gave a somewhat predictable answer.
Trying to figure out what team that fit me the most and where I'm most comfortable with. Obviously Callahan is here. That's my guy, and he's a heck of a coach, man. That's why he's here. And just being able to fit in that scheme, which I do well. I've been a part of this offense for a while now, 5th, 6th year. So I just felt like it was the right fit.
Yeah. So following Brian Callahan, could have told you that. He felt like it was the right fit. I'm trying to think what else he said about the fit with Tennessee. He kind of alluded a little bit to the idea that, it's a familiar situation. He's going to be able to compete with these guys in this room. And that's where this next quote from him takes us. The idea of, hey, Tyler Boyd, you're playing in a room with some really talented receivers. You've done that before in Cincinnati when you were playing with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Now you're with Calvin Ridley and with Treylon Burks and with DeAndre Hopkins. What does that do for you guys as a unit to have that force multiplier effect of all of you in the same room? And here was his answer.
Yeah, a lot, man. Because as long as we can all feed off each other and just compliment each other, I think that's what's going to take us to that level. Because we all know we all can play. It's just how do we compliment each other? How well can we do things off of each other? How can I help really? How can I drag the nickel down and help him? Free him up to get over, So at that point, it's just a lot of complimentary football, because those, like I said, those guys are heck of a talent, and myself as well, So we just got to do just a good job of just locking in, knowing the scheme of the offense, and just being detailed. And I think just with that being said, the confidence level just take us to the highest level.
And if you don't want to take Tyler Boyd's word for it, here is DeAndre Hopkins talking about the very same topic. This talented receiver room he is in, he says here, one of the most, if not the most talented receiver group on paper that he's been a part of. And here were his thoughts on that.
I think this is one of the best wide receiver groups I had a chance to play with on paper. So obviously, I can come up here and say a bunch, but we haven't played a game yet. So we'll see how it goes once we hit the field.
What's that going to take to turn success on paper into success on Sundays?
Just taking it day by day. Tyler Boyd been in his program for a while. Just taking it day by day. A lot of us are still learning. How things go. So just coming out practicing.
Now, any thoughts on that before I change the topic on DeAndre Hopkins?
No, I was just going to say the biggest thing I think with this new group is that, yes, they are very talented, but I think you hit the nail on the head where Tyler Boyd says playing complementary football is as big of an aspect to this, to making this work and working with your teammates. And I think that's something that the Titans really have never had before, having these guys all know that they have to play complementary football together with each other. And I think that's something that is going to be a new look and refreshing idea that Brian Callahan is bringing for this offense as well, not just because Tyler Boyd is here, but because they have all these guys who can be versatile in their skill sets in the receiving game. That's something that I think is huge for them. And, with Tyler Boyd there, like he said, being able to create opportunities to have other guys get open, not having to be that number one guy, having enough to go around for everyone. I think that is going to be the biggest part of what makes this receiving core either succeed or fail.
Yeah, and I agree with all of that, obviously. Now DeAndre went on to talk about, well, we asked him about Treylon Burks, and this became a big fuss today because the quote he gave was strange, and it was strange at the time. It needed explanation, but DeAndre said, and I want to go and make sure I find it here. Okay, wait, hold that thought. I want to tell you exactly what he said, and it's now failing to load. Okay, so this was tweeted out by Terry McCormick's tweet is what went viral. When asked if people are sleeping on Treylon Burks, DeAndre Hopkins said, quote, "How do I answer that without making a negative soundbite? 9. That's no in German," end quote. Kind of a cutesy answer. But then you say, okay, no, so he's not being slept on. People are right about him sucking at football. Like, what? Huh? What? That out of context went crazy. And it also, the idea of, I don't want to make a negative soundbite, so I'm going to say in a foreign language, no, to crap on my teammate, but then explain to you what that word means in English in case it wasn't obvious. It was strange at the time. And out of context, it's weird. And it seems like, oh, DeAndre Hopkins, he thinks his teammate sucks. He went on, like, I think the next question, maybe 2 questions later, to talk about how Treylon Burks is one of the most physically gifted receivers he has ever played with. Well, here's the exact quote. He went on to say, actually, that's not, somebody's paraphrasing. Okay, well, I'll paraphrase for them. He went on to say, Treylon Burks, one of the fastest, biggest receivers, most physically, athletically gifted receivers I've ever played with. And I'm excited. He essentially said, I'm excited to see what he can do. He then, after practice, like an hour later, was quote tweeting the tweet from Terry, taking his 9 comment and putting it out there. And he explained, and I quote from DeAndre's Twitter, "The media is the only one sleeping on Treylon Burks. No one in the locker room doubted him or slept on him. We are not people. I can't speak for, quote, people. So 9, he's never been slept on to us. Thank you. Come again." All right. Well, okay. The point in all of this is the fake outrage in May over DeAndre Hopkins hating Treylon Burks, thinking he sucks. Let's relax. Let's chill out on that. Okay. It was a weird way of saying it, kind of a weird explanation, but the fact that he immediately then went into talking positively about Treylon Burks made me in the moment think, oh, maybe he just meant yes and said no on accident. I don't really know what he meant by that, but clearly he thinks highly of Treylon Burks. Yeah, I don't know. What did you make of that?
I think
I hate that we're even spending time on this.
It's weird. Like, I'm just trying to figure it out because the question also is just weird. Like, I think, did he think that? Yeah, I'm trying to put it together in my brain. The locker room, people are apparently sleeping on Treylon Burks, but DeAndre Hopkins doesn't think anybody in the locker room is sleeping on Treylon Burks. Because
he's saying we're not sleeping on Treylon because he's him. Like, nobody's sleeping because we know he's him. Like, that's what he was trying to say, I think.
But other people are sleeping on him.
Right. Well, but and again, he's like, you guys in the media are sleeping on. Well, hang on, relax. Fans everywhere are sleeping on him, actually, because he's not done much. So, and there's a cicada attacking my window. Just sorry. Demon creatures. I don't know. It was weird. This is a high quality podcast where we're 45 minutes in talking about.
We're trying to figure it out. We're trying to get to the bottom of it.
I don't know what it meant. What's the tweet? It's nobody knows what it means, but it's provocative. Like, that's what that's what that was from DeAndre Hopkins. And we can move on here to one last clip from Amani Hooker. He came to the podium today, and we asked him about what the defense under Dennard Wilson, I couldn't think of Dennard Wilson's name, sorry, what the defense under Dennard Wilson is going to look like, how it's going to be different from the 2023 version of the Titans defense. And here's what he had to say.
I'd say, a lot more, aggressive. That's kind of what the theme was coming in before we even got Coach Dennard here. And so far, that's what it's been. It's been aggressive, but also, there's times when you can be aggressive and times when not to. And, our coach are doing a good job of teaching that. How do you like work with Dennard?
And again, not a shocking answer, but the fact that this is the message being conveyed, I think, is important. Hey, this is going to be a very aggressive, downhill, fast defense, and you're going to have to play accordingly to be out there on the field for Dennard. because that's the way that they're going to operate. I think it's exciting. And I think Titans fans, if nothing more than just an exciting change of pace, maybe it's not dramatically better at first than it has been in the past, but that you're at least not frustrated. Hey, why are we 7 yards shallow on a guy, or 7 yards deep with cushion on a guy when it's 3rd and 2? Maybe can we press the guy a little bit? Can we not give them the 3rd down with an easy turn and catch? That's going to be nice, I think, to be playing aggressively, going after the quarterback. One random thing on the defense, JT, by the way, I was talking with our buddy Kayla Anderson about the defense generally at camp today, and we were talking about how, Arden Key, we think his best utilization is as a rotational player. He maxes out his potential when he's playing 20, 30, 35 snaps a game, not 45, 50, 60 snaps a game, right? That's kind of the same deal with Rashad Weaver, who, by the way, just random comment from camp, he looks more trim. He bulked up last season. I think they wanted to use him more versatilely inside out. This year, I think they told him, let's trim it down. You're a long, fast young man. We need you to be long and fast and bendy. That's what you're going to be doing on the edge. Don't even worry about getting big. We need you to be long and fast and bendy and strong. And he looks that part. But he's still going to, it's a rotational ceiling at best for Rashad Weaver. I think everybody understands that now. And so that means one of those guys, and it's going to be Arden Key, is going to have to be the starter alongside Harold Landry. That's just the reality, even though it's not his best situation, I don't think. It's the way it's going to have to be. And that lends itself to this idea that, man, up front, the Titans could use help inside. They could definitely use help on the outside. Rushing the passer may be kind of a crapshoot this year. And so it made me realize a fun bet, and Kayla and I were talking about this. We didn't actually make the bet, but it's a fun idea. How many of the Titans sacks this season do you think are going to be low-key just coverage sacks? Is it going to be 50-50? Because you don't, if you can, and I told her, having guys up front that aren't great is not a big deal if you've got 4 seconds to get home every time. If you've got guys just locked down in the secondary for 3.5, 4 seconds, you and I can get home to the quarterback. Not really, but that's kind of the way that it works. So there may be a number of really late cleanup sacks, and it's maybe not as super exciting for Harold Landry, where it's they struggled and got knocked down, got back up, and they stacked the quarterback. They got him because he scrambled right into their arms. But it's going to be holy crap, this secondary is tough.
Exactly. I think the secondary is going to be really tough. I think for the Harold Landry cleanup artist narratives out there, I don't think it's going to do
23 sack season pending for Harold Landry. He's going to be clean up on Al Landry every single
Zach
game.
Lyons is going to go crazy every single week. We're
going to have him on in week 7, where Harold Landry is already at 17 sacks, and we're going to gaslight him into putting Harold Landry in the Hall of Fame. That's what we're going to do.
Yeah. That's a good plan. I'm with you on that. I can't wait.
All right. So we already know what we're doing in week 7. That's good. Yep. We can write that down. Anything else? Some comments here. I think Ryan will address some of these comments, his questions in the comments, and then we'll get out of here. Ryan Walker, appreciate you being here, man. He says, how did Farley look? Caleb Farley was out there today. Was he doing anything besides stretching? I'll be honest, I didn't notice him doing anything besides stretching. He may have been. If so, he was just among, I was focused on the receivers and the offense today. I didn't pay a ton of attention to the defense. So next time we're out there, I'll be looking. That being said, he was asked about to Brian Callahan at the podium, the idea of Caleb Farley progressing, where, what's got to happen for him to get back on the field. And it was positive remarks from Brian Callahan. He says the strength and conditioning and the medical staff are doing a great job with him. And so it's kind of a unicorn sighting to see Caleb Farley out there at all in practice, let alone at this point in the year. I don't know. I think there's still reason to maybe you can get something out of him. But just there's no, there's reason to be wishful. There's not reason to be hopeful. Does that make sense? There's no basis for hoping for it, but you can wish for it. And if you put everything together,
there's no reason in having expectations, but you can be happily surprised.
Yes, exactly. So that's what we'll do, Ryan. We'll be setting the bar very low and surprised by anything that he does there. Z-Deans has a prediction to end the show. Will the Titans sign a safety? They've essentially told you they're going to. So, yeah, my prediction is yes, they will be. And that was another thing, actually, I brought up with Kayla Anderson. We were talking about the defense. She's like, they have to sign a safety, right? I was like, well, they kind of said they're going to. And when you look at this roster, in no world can they not. There are certain things from practices we're not allowed to say, so I'm not going to say them. That being said, I will say Amani Hooker is the only guy out there that you can rely upon to play safety. And I know there are other guys like by rely upon, I mean rely upon to stay on the field healthy. And based on some things that I saw today, that's not, that's the situation, and that's not enough. And so there's some other guys at the position. Who are the other ones that come to mind, JT, for you?
I mean, Elijah Molden, if he continues on that track, man, is Mike Brown still around? Like,
yeah.
Like on the depth chart right here, it's like Mike Brown, Shaim Carter, Matthew
Carter, right?
Like those were the guys from last year. Like I'm surprised I was able to pull Mike Brown out of my brain right there.
I was surprised by that. I'm not gonna. I can't say anything more than that. But yes, they have to, because they only have one guy they can rely upon to week in and week out stay healthy and play that position, and his name's Amani Hooker. So there's that. Okay, let's get done. Let's get out of here, JT. We've got a birthday evening to celebrate with you. So let's get to that, folks. We appreciate you being here live with us. We'll be back on Thursday talking about some interesting offseason topic. We've got some things in the chamber. We're going to figure out which one we're going to fire off, and it's going to be a good time. But until then, for producer JT, I'm your host, Easton Freeze. Like, subscribe, follow us on social media at Hot Read Pod on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, all those things. We'll talk to you on Thursday.